Hey everybody, Jake Guitar here. Today we're going to do an oil change on a 2014 Toyota Highlander 3.5 liter 6-cylinder engine. Okay, so let's get started. This car calls for actually full synthetic oil. It takes 0W20 full synthetic, and it's going to need about 6.4 quarts. The oil filter we're using is the Fram 9972. And we're going to need a special tool. This is the oil filter removal tool. We need an adjustable wrench. We need a 1/2-inch extension, a 1/2-inch ratchet drive, a 3/8-inch ratchet drive, and an extension for that ratchet. And it requires a 14mm socket to take the drain plug off. Alright, so let's get started with this job. First thing we're going to do, of course, is we're going to jack the car up. And if you take a look underneath, you want to always make sure that your jack is placed on a rigid part of the frame, not on anything plastic or anything that can bend. And I always like to take my jack stands and place them in there just in case the jack fails. Alright, so let's crawl under the car. On the passenger side of the car, we're going to see the oil filter and also the oil drain plug. You always want to have your pan set underneath and also place some cardboard under there, because chances are you're going to have some oil spillage and you want to protect the floor. Okay, so that right there is a 14mm. I always put my gloves on because this tends to be a very messy job. We're going to put our 3/8-inch ratchet with our 14mm socket on that drain plug, and we're going to slowly break it free. Sometimes it's pretty tight depending on who jammed it on last time, but just righty tighty, lefty loosey. We're going to give it a little push and it should just break free just like that. Okay, I always like to do the rest by hand. It's very easy at this point. There's no sense in keeping the wrench on it. And when you turn it, keep inward pressure with your fingers on that bolt and hold it in, and hold it tight, because once it finally comes loose, you don't want it to end up in the oil bucket. Alright, there we go. We're going to speed through this part real quick, and we're going to completely drain the engine of its oil. When it gets down to the point where it's just barely dripping or just trickling out, that's when I usually just go ahead and put the plug back in. My brother likes to do what he calls a drip dry. Just lets it drip all night long until there's nothing left in the engine. I figure if you get 99.9% of the oil out, that's good enough. Alright. Once you get that, you're going to thread it in by hand at first, and then you're going to put your wrench back on and lock it back down. There we go. From this point, we're going to move over to where the filter is. The filter has a nut on the bottom. This is not the standard type of oil filter like we're used to. This is what you call a cartridge filter. And where that arrow is just pointing, you're going to have to put the 1/2-inch drive into that and loosen that nut and drain the oil out of the filter housing before you drop the filter. Otherwise, you're going to have a big mess. And the way to do that is you can use the wrench. You can hold the wrench in place like this, and you're going to use your 1/2-inch drive and break it free. Once you break it free, you can take your tool down and just finish unscrewing that nut until all the oil comes out of that hole. I suggest hanging onto that nut so it also doesn't end up in your bucket of oil. My camera died here, and I apologize, but take my word for it, a lot of oil came out of that drain hole there. Alright, so now we're going to put our tool back on the filter and just uninstall the filter at this point. We're going to just take it down. As you unscrew the filter, you will see a little bit of oil running out of it, but since we took that nut out of the bottom and actually drained it, you won't see a whole lot. So carefully unscrew it, and again, make sure it doesn't fall into your bucket of oil and make a big mess. But once you get to the point where you can do it by hand, you can certainly do it by hand right there, and finish taking the oil filter down. Yeah, my memory card filled up there. But so once you get the filter down, place it on some cardboard on an area where you can start working. There we go. Okay. Take your tool off, and you can simply just slide out the old cartridge. Looks pretty dirty. It's about the color of the oil, actually. Pretty dark. And you're going to see you have an O-ring there, and you have an O-ring there. And the new oil filter comes with two O-rings, a big one and a small one. You're going to use something to simply just pick the old O-ring out on both the top and the bottom. Here's the larger O-ring coming out. It's really simple. And then we're going to take our new O-ring, and I don't know, everybody likes to put a little bit of oil on the O-ring, and I'm guessing it's not a terrible idea. And put the O-ring back into place without stretching it. Kind of put it on there evenly, and then kind of just roll it down into the groove that is that's designed to hold that O-ring. Yeah, it should fit really nice. Then you flip it over, and you're going to get something to pick out the old O-ring on the other side. And same thing, once again, you're just going to grab your new O-ring, maybe put a little oil on it if it makes you feel better, and you're going to press it back in there with your fingertips. It should go in nice and easy. And once it's in, take a good look, make sure it's seated properly. We're just going to take our nut, and we can just put our nut back on at this point in time. Thread it most of the way with your fingers. Once you get it down all the way, then you can take your drive and make it nice and tight. There is a torque specification for this that I have no idea what it is, but if you go ahead and make it tight, you know, without over tightening it, you'll be fine. Okay, you can see the new cartridge filter just pops right in there. Then you're going to take your filter housing, and by hand you're going to thread it right back into the hole. And this goes pretty much most of the way by hand. Once it gets to the end, you're going to feel it's going to make a nice abrupt stop, and it really won't go much more at that point in time. And you can take your tool and put it on there and just snug it up a little bit, but you're not going to get it's not going to turn much more at this point in time. It's really tight. Also, from here, you want to make sure you tighten up that plug. Just double check it, make sure it's tight. In this case, it was a little loose, so now that it's on the car, you should be able to get some leverage on there and tighten up that oil drain nut from the filter. Okay, so let's go ahead and start adding the oil. We're going to pop our hood, and when we raise the hood, make sure you take the prop and place it in the right position. I've seen this thing come down on people's heads before because it just wasn't placed properly. Got to find the little latch there and raise the hood first. Yeah, once it's raised, take your prop and put it. There usually is a little arrow there on the hood where it says to put it. Don't put it in a different place. Put it where it's supposed to go. See, I kind of just showed you right there. Unscrew the oil filler, and This engine takes 6.4 quarts of synthetic oil. And that's pretty much what it took to get right on the money as far as the right level. And I'm just showing you, pouring the remainder of the oil in. But we put a whole 5 quarts in prior to this, and this is just a little bit left from another container that had about 1.4 quarts actually in it. And you're going to check the oil. Alright, we reached a very important part. This is the maintenance indicator reset. In order to reset your maintenance indicator, pretty simple. You're going to turn the key to the on position, not starting the car, and you're going to make sure your trip odometer is on trip A. Then you're going to shut the car off. Alright? Then you're going to press and hold the odometer button there while you turn the car back to the on position. You're going to see that it will reset. Okay, now you really should write in the next time you're going to do your oil change, and what you do is you look at the odometer on the car, what it's reading, and you know what, the manufacturer actually recommends you could put 10,000 miles on this oil, but I don't feel great doing it, so I usually just do about 6,000 or 7,000 miles. In this case, I added 7,000 miles to the odometer and wrote it in. Alright, so last step, start the car, let it run for a minute, turn the car off, and we're going to check the oil. That's it. I hope you liked it. Feel free to subscribe, and have a great day.